Hi, I'm Kenny Joya. Welcome to another one of my tutorials. In this video, we're going to go over understanding compression in Reaper. Now, compression is kind of a complicated subject, which is why I wanted to go over it in this video and show you how to use it in Reaper, or basically in general. Now, there's two different types of compression. We could use it as a special effect that'll pump and breathe and create some distortion like effects, or we could just use it to control our dynamics, making loud things quieter and quiet things louder, basically reducing the dynamic range, which is the difference between the quietest and loudest signal of our audio. And this matters when you're mixing tracks together, as when a track gets quiet, it can be hard to hear without turning it up. And in those moments when it gets louder, now it's too loud for the mix. So by adding some compression, we basically balance out the level of our signal, making it fit in the mix better. But let's take a look at the first type of compression. I have a drum track in front of me. Let's hear what it sounds like now. Sounds pretty normal. But let's say we wanted to make a more aggressive sound that pumps and breathes and almost starts to distort or saturate. We could do that with compression. Let's go to the track effects. On this track, let's search compressor. And one of my favorites is this one right here, the 1175 compressor. Let's double click it. And it looks like this. And down over here, we can see the gain reduction that's happening, which is how much compression we're adding to the drums. Let's bring our threshold down into the drums. We can make up the gain right here to make up for the compression. Notice how aggressive that sounds, creating more of a special effect. And we can adjust our attack to respond quickly to our transients and compress very quickly. Or we can let the transients through by slowing down the attack. And the release controls how quickly the compression stops after the sound gets below our threshold. It responds quicker, or we can slow it down for a more subtle effect. But either way, this is how we use a compressor for a special effect. But typically, we tend to use compressors to control our dynamics. So let's try out a different compressor, which will illustrate it more easily. Another one of my favorites is the General Dynamics compressor. Double click it, and it looks like this. And down over here is a chart that better illustrates what a compressor is doing. If I play the drums now, we can see our input over here and the output over here. And you'll notice there's no change happening. The input is equal to the output. So as it goes up over here, it goes up over here. But to create some compression, we could change the output over here. Let's go down 4 boxes, 1, 2, 3, 4, and draw from here over to here. Let's smooth it out by holding down the Shift key. And now, this area right here is our threshold. And we could adjust our gain going into it right here. And if our volume goes over the threshold, this area right here, it starts to compress. And because we brought this down 1 square instead of 4, it's known as 4:1 compression. That's the ratio we're using. So as our input goes up 4 dB, the output only changes 1 dB. And that's the compression we're getting. And again, we could adjust our attack and release to shape how the compression works. Again, if we use a quick attack, it's going to respond to every attack or transient in the signal. But if we slow it down, it'll let some of those transients through, uncompressed. Notice how it shapes the attack of our drums. It'll cut down our attack if we bring it to the left. And the release decides how quickly it stops responding. So if we go with a quick release, it stops responding to input and goes back to normal very quickly. Notice how quickly this moves, or more slowly with a slower release. Notice it comes down very slowly. Versus a quicker release. Notice, with this compressor, we can still make it extreme, but it's a great way of viewing how the compressor is working. Let's set it up to be more subtle. Now it's only compressing when the drums get really loud, as you can see right down here. Some of it is below the threshold, and some of it is above. And everything above is going to be compressed at that 4:1 ratio, making it more contained with less dynamic range. So if we wanted a more subtle effect, this is how we do it. But let's take a look at how this applies to a vocal, which is a very common use of a compressor, to control the volume of our singer so the quiet parts aren't so quiet and the louder parts aren't so loud, making it easier to fit in a mix. So I have a project right here with a vocal, some drums, bass, and instruments. Let's see what it sounds like now.
Oh, I'm slipping away, so don't let me go, nah, 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 nah. I'm all up in that love haze, so where do we go, nah, nah, just let me.
As you can tell, the vocal is very dynamic, meaning it gets too loud in certain spots and too low in others. It starts out pretty quiet, gets loud over here, quiet again, loud again, quiet and loud. Let's hear it again.
Oh, I'm slipping away, so don't let me go, nah, 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 nah. I'm all up in that love haze, so where do we go, nah, nah, just.
So it's a perfect use for compression. Let's go to track effects on the vocal. Let's open up the General Dynamics plugin. Although we can use any compressor we want, I just want to show it to you so you can see the compressor reacting with that chart or graph. Double click it. Again, it looks like this with a graph or chart down here. Let's draw in 1, 2, 3, 4, 4:1 compression like this. Let's smooth it out by holding down the shift key, making a softer knee. Now we can compress our vocal right here. Now for vocals, I tend to use this feature, Input Look Ahead. It'll make the compression smoother as it's looking ahead to see what's coming. Let's bring it up to about 200 milliseconds. Let's try compressing the vocal.
Oh, I'm slipping away, so don't let me go, nah, 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 nah. I'm all
Again, the loudest sections are being compressed, as we can see right here, and the quietest sections are being brought up because we brought up the makeup gain. Let's hear it again.
Oh, I'm slipping away, so don't let me go, nah, 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 nah. I'm all up in that love haze, so where do we go, nah, nah? Just
Notice how it sits better in the mix. Before,
oh, I'm slipping away, so don't let me go, nah, 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 nah. I'm all up in that love haze, so
we really hear the difference between the loud and quieter phrases. Turn it back on, and it compresses the louder ones, and therefore brings up the quieter ones, as the dynamic range, which is the quietest to the loudest signal, is reduced.
Oh, I'm slipping away, so don't let me go, nah, 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 nah. I'm all up in that love haze, so where do we go, nah, nah? Just let me know.
That sounds a lot better and more even to me. So that's pretty much it. That's understanding compression in Reaper. I hope you learned something, hope you could use it, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.
Bingo, boys, let's go.